Hello again, everybody. It's Teacher Kaye. Do you want to know how your baby's eating can affect the development of their speech muscles? Stick around and let's get talking. Hello again, everybody. Thanks for being here. I received so much great feedback about episode 5, and you said that you appreciated knowing what to expect from your baby. So I thought I'd give you like a prequel to episode 5 or a little bit more of the same. But I'm going to try to make this super fast. Here goes. Not a lot of people know that speech-language pathologists also deal with disorders of feeding and swallowing. That's because we studied the somatognathic system. Don't worry, di ko papaspell sa inyo. But it's the system that is composed of the bones, muscles, glands, nerves, organs that are responsible for our breathing, our respiration, our feeding and swallowing, and eventually our speech. The first instinctive movement that babies do with their mouths is eating. How does their eating eventually affect the development of the speech muscles? The super simple answer is that they use mostly the same muscles in feeding that they do in speaking. Eating allows our babies to strengthen the muscles of the articulators or of the oral peripheral mechanism or OPM. With the strengthening of these, they will be able to coordinate more actions together and they will be able to move them further for different kinds of movements related to speech. Some studies have shown a link between the efficiency in which babies control their oral movements or coordinate their oral movements with speech and language success later on. The earliest feeding pattern that we can see in babies is their suckling. And I mentioned this in episode 5, where suckling entails the forward and backward movement of the tongue. This allows them to slurp in the liquids and pushing away solids that may accidentally have been put into the mouth, and that prevents them from choking. But see, this initial movement gives them some idea of how to move their tongues in space in their mouths. After suckling, it becomes sucking, which involves some sort of opening and closing at the back of the mouth. So there's already some jaw action involved. When they are introduced to different varieties of foods, like semi-solids at around 6 months and solids at 8 months, on different kinds of textures and varieties of foods later on, they are able to do different things with their mouths, like strengthen how much their jaw moves together to bite or to chew, how much their tongues need to move the food around when they're chewing, and things like that. So it's super interesting that the first movements that they learn is from a functional activity like eating, and later on can translate to easier movements in speech. Although it must be noted that to practice speech sounds needs to be through speech movements. So you practice speech through talking and not through other movement exercises. If your pediatrician suggests that you introduce different kinds of food at certain periods of your baby's development, do try it. They don't only increase the variety of nutrition that your baby can receive, but also helps in the exploration of their OPM. In typical patterns of development, people learn how to do big movements first before they become refined. So this is learning gross motor skills, which later become fine motor skills. And speaking and feeding and swallowing are fine motor skills. So how can we relate this to their other forms of development? How else can we tell if our baby's speech muscles are developing typically? So first, it is isolating the movements of the lips from movement of the entire body. So if you've watched babies enough, you know that sometimes when they try to imitate some lip movement, instead of actually moving their lips or their mouths, they kind of move their entire body with it. Next, you can check for the isolation of the tongue movements with the rest of the body and or the jaw. So a lot of times when they try to imitate tongue movements like lifting it up or bringing it to the side, or what we call lateralization, they tend to move either their entire bodies or their mouths. So they do those different awkward things in the beginning until they learn how to isolate each and every articulator to move independently of the bigger muscle groups like the jaw and the body. Before they can get to isolating, you'll probably observe the gross motor counterparts of those movements first. If you've ever heard of tummy time, you can do tummy time as early as when you bring home your baby from the hospital into your homes. So tummy time is just laying them flat on their tummies for a period of as fast as a few minutes to start with, and then you keep increasing that duration as they get bigger, as they get older, several months. Tummy time should always be supervised. You cannot just leave your baby on their tummies and then do something else. Tummy time has so many benefits. So it helps them improve their back posture from 0 to 3 months. There's also the benefit of strengthening their necks. So they learn to elevate their necks from a prone position up like this. From 3 to 6 months old, they'll be able to flex their elbows and push away from the floor, strengthening their shoulders as well. Around 6 to 9 months old, they will start learning how to sit. And this is so cool because it is around the same time that you can introduce semi-solids to solid food. That's when they're already able to be upright, and we can assume that the muscles inside of their mouths are also able to start doing more vertical movements. Between 9 to 27 months old is when we will start seeing them moving, standing up, even walking, and that's when it is also accompanied by the progression of their chewing behaviors, which also includes movement of their tongue around to shift food from left to right in different parts of the mouth. So you can see that the complexity of their gross motor movements are also accompanied by the complexity of their fine motor movements. So how can we help this growth along? Like I said, you cannot force it, but we can do some activities consistently every day, such as what I mentioned, tummy time, in increasing periods throughout the day to help them strengthen the muscles of their chest, their neck, their back, so that their breathing is more stable, their movements are more coordinated, they have more strength and mobility to move their bodies, which will later translate to movements in their OPM. It would help to have tracking activities. Tracking activities are when you hold something up, preferably when they're really, really young babies. There's something that makes a sound or noise or a very bright colored object. And you can hold that up in different positions so that when they are on their tummies or later on when they're sitting, you can help them improve their movements by either lifting their heads, looking from side to side, or looking all around in a circular fashion. So all of those things will help stabilize their muscles, and those muscles are also around the muscles of the somatognathic system. And don't be afraid to introduce the foods when your pediatrician has suggested them, because they will improve the movement of the OPM as well. And that's it for today. Easy peasy, something very easy to swallow. See what I did there? If you like this, found this helpful or amusing, hopefully more helpful than amusing, then please like and share and subscribe. Help me get these messages across to people who may need it the most. And thank you. Happy talking. And when you're supervising, you can do activities that will salty. So from being prone, salty.